Hi, my name is JBrown, and I'm a mathematics teacher at Ola High School that's located in McDonough, Georgia in the Henry County School District. I am currently completing my master's program in instructional technology at Kennesaw State University and should be finished May 2017, so next month. And I'm extremely excited about that. This is my capstone proposal presentation. Now, the title of my capstone is The Benefits of Blended Learning. And the reason why I decided that this would be my focus for my capstone project is that at the end of 2015-2016 school year, Henry County School District announced its initiative for personalized learning. And whenever it was brought to the attention of the faculty and staff at Ola High School, in March of 2016, the response was more so fearful than it was actually exciting or anybody really being too excited about it. So many teachers started sharing their fears with myself and some of the administrators, and kind of a common theme was that they were worried about the distraction that one-on-one technology could bring, considering that so many of their students already bring their own technology, because we are a BYOT, bring your own technology district. And because of that, many of them didn't see the benefits of the technology in the classroom. I even had one teacher tell me that she didn't see how technology could actually work with the way that she teaches, which made me extremely sad. So that's because of those reactions, and because Henry County said that no matter what, that's what we were going to be doing, I chose to branch off of personalized learning and focus in on one particular type, which is blended learning, because that seemed to be more applicable to how I was already running my classroom and how I wanted, how many of the other teachers kind of felt or saw their classes going. Now, what exactly is blended learning? That the best quote that I could find was it's a combination of online and face-to-face learning, and that was in Graham. You can read into my proposal for that. And really it's finding a balance between actually teaching the class and having online interactions for your students. So the better the balance, the better the class, and the better the kids are able to actually enjoy it. So why exactly use blended learning, and why did I choose that? That's mainly because of a couple of different stats that I came across while I was doing my research, one of which was from the Center of Digital Education's survey regarding the benefits of blended learning. They found that 92% of respondents to that survey agreed on 3 benefits, and that is the ability to offer alternate learning opportunities, the ability to offer the ability to offer distance learning programs, and increase student engagement. That survey was taken in 2012, and it seemed the more I researched it, the more the kids actually benefited from this type of interaction. In that survey as well, of just students that had experienced blended learning classroom, 84% of those participants reported that blended learning technologies improved their understanding and retention of course content. Now, there hasn't been that much as far as the testing of this, because it's been more so on the college level than it is on in like the high school and secondary level. So, but what I really started to realize was that this is where a lot of the college classes are going, is to having that blended learning type of an environment, and we should be teaching our kids to be prepared for college. So that was my main choice as to why I wanted to research and really get involved in the blended learning process. So the objectives of my capstone proposal were there were 3. Improve knowledge of the blended learning model for both students and teachers, improve teachers' ability to teach using a blended learning model, and improve teachers' knowledge of blended learning platforms for their subject area. These objectives would be met in the following deliverables. Develop an online pre- and post survey of teachers to assess their integration of the blended learning model. Identify an online blended learning platform for each subject area. Develop professional development plans for implementation of the blended learning platform for all subject areas or any of those that were involved in this, and develop pacing guides for complete implementation of the blended learning model and at least one unit for each of my volunteers. I am going to provide kind of a couple of the different timelines and things like that, so you can see exactly where I was and what I was doing. But to get the volunteers, I did a survey during pre-planning of the 2016 school year, and only 2 people actually even responded to that survey, and that was after keeping it open for a whole week. So I had to change my plans a great deal because of this, but at the same time I was still on the same blended learning model, and both of my volunteers, after I had that first meeting with them individually, understood that's what I wanted them to do, and they actually were intrigued and wanted to do this type of learning inside their classrooms. So the experience overall was really, really good, because even though I wasn't able to do what I initially wanted, which was whole group instruction, in the survey I even asked, would you like to meet in the mornings, meet in the afternoons as a group, I was able to do more individualized coaching for each of my for each of my coworkers, and they seemed to benefit a great deal more from the individualized bit that I was able to do as compared to just instructing everyone and having lesson plans for everything and things like that. So let me go ahead and talk a little bit about my 2 volunteers. Their names are Miss L and Miss P, so that way we can keep that a little bit confidential. Miss L was the first one that I met with. She was actually the first volunteer, and not only did she reply to my survey, but she also sent me a personal email asking to make sure that she was involved in this type of thing. So she was extremely excited. She was very open about the fact that she felt she was not as knowledgeable about technology, and she really wanted to start to find different ways to integrate it into her classroom and slowly move into this blended learning idea. So we decided, since she was teaching a Resource World Literature class, we decided to focus on 2 types of implementation to help her towards that blended learning model. The first one was blogging within her classroom, and we decided to use EduBlog. And then the second portion was online quizzes and online review using Kahoot. So both of these kids can get on by themselves after she did a little bit of instruction, or she could even use the blogs as a continuation piece of their readings and things like that. So she seemed extremely excited about this, and whenever we went through a couple of different sessions and meetings where we focused on the blogging portion. We created her blog. She started to really feel comfortable with it, but unfortunately it became so far along in the school year by the time that she felt really ready to implement, that she decided, knowing her students more and such, that they probably wouldn't be at a place where they would be able to just jump on a computer. And especially since our school isn't one-to-one, but we will be next year, we discussed and decided that we would continue these coaching sessions, and that she would actually implement the blog in her resource class next year. We're still meeting, we're still making sure that she's getting this done, and we're also actually adding more of an online classroom idea to help with this blended learning process, so that we're slowly getting away from a total face-to-face learning, and she wants to implement more of online learning with the blog, and that's where Kahoot comes in. She's actually already used Kahoot in her class, and the students seem very, very responsive to it. She mainly used it as a review piece where she would project the questions on the board, kids would answer them using their device, and then they would discuss, which is great. But she also wanted to use it as actually a way to quiz her students to see where they were, them doing it individually. Found out how to do that. She is still working out some of the kinks to make sure the kids are prepared to do it. But as we continue with the coaching for the blogs and the online learning piece, I'm actually going to be working with her to make sure she's got the Kahoots as well. So it's a continuation. We're still going, and I'm going to continually check on her to make sure that she feels like what she's doing is good. So Miss P, my second volunteer and last volunteer, focused mainly on Google Drive. She wanted to do something with Google Drive that could really become much more, she wanted to be much more efficient with it in her classroom. She had mainly only used Google Drive to save her own documents and nothing else. So we decided, once I did a little bit of research, that she would mainly want to focus on Google Classroom and using Google Classroom along with Google Forms and Google Docs to really create an online classroom that she could use in this blended learning setting. So once we kind of got into it, she decided that she wanted to focus on trying to use the Google Docs for her students to collaborate right now, and Google Forms so that she could do questionnaires and things like that throughout her class, to help her know that they know the material. Just like Miss L, she decided not to do a full implementation until next year whenever our schools are one-to-one, so that we can definitely make sure that every student has a device in the classroom. But she already had her students starting to get acquainted with Google Docs, so that whenever they worked on projects, they were doing it simultaneously, even at home, not just at school, things like that. So that was extremely, those meetings, those sessions seemed to really, really help her. And I was very happy and felt like I had done something, because she could see it in her classroom, and she's still very excited about this implementation next year. So as I reflect on this capstone project, and such, I've really focused in on 3 main ideas, and that is: failure is an option. Make sure you have the backing of your administrators, and always know that there are other options. So failure is not quite failure. I felt like a failure from the very beginning because I only had 2 people volunteer. But as I went on, I realized that the individualized part of the sessions really helped my 2 teachers to feel more comfortable with what they wanted to do. And even though we didn't quite get into the actual blended learning portion of what they want to do, they still feel like our meetings aren't a waste of time and that I'm not doing anything for them, but they're actually implementing and they want to do this, and we're going to continue to meet until even after they start implementation next year, to make sure that I'm supporting them and that they feel comfortable with what they're doing. Backing of the administrators, after I sent out the survey and after I tried to do everything, it came to I went to one of my admins and asked, why don't I have volunteers? And she specifically said, well, if we had known a little bit more about this, we probably would have pushed it a little bit more. I had talked to them off and on, sent them my proposal, but we know how it is, especially the beginning and the end of the years, where you don't know. And so I feel like if I had gone to them from the very beginning, expressed what I wanted to do, and got their complete backing, then it would have been easier to get these volunteers and get people involved. So that's something, as a reflection, that I'm definitely going to work on from here on in. And then just knowing your options, knowing that you don't have to always stick to the first thought that you had, that change is good. And it's not something, it can sometimes be difficult, but at the same time can be very beneficial to you and those that are involved. So lastly, I'd like to acknowledge that just because I didn't have the backing of my administrator, my administration, doesn't mean that they aren't good. Because once they realized what I was doing, they have put me into different places and different technology positions so that I can actually help more and more people with this blended learning idea. I'd like to thank my administration at Ola High School. I'd like to thank Miss P and Miss L at Ola High School for letting me use them as my guinea pigs. And I'd really like to thank my family for going through this. And of course the KSU faculty and staff, because they have done so much for me. And I'm so excited to have that Masters of Instructional Technology at the end of my name. So thank you. And I hope that anyone who has any questions about blended learning will feel free to ask.